I've been pondering for a while. Do you find it strange that you just don't hear anything about Fukushima anymore? I mean, you don't really hear anything on mainstream media about this. Not a word. It's like it never even happened. Why do you think this is? Well, to keep the real issues, I would say to keep the real issues from not surfacing.
Uh-oh, I think we lost Miss Linda.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you just cut out. Sorry, Linda. You're back live.
All right. Sorry about that, everybody. It happens. But anyway, I don't know where I left off, but I'm talking about Fukushima, and I'm finding it strange that the media is not talking about this, and I don't think that it's very good that a nuclear reactor keeps leaking into the Pacific. I mean, if we surely think there aren't going to be consequences, we're truly in denial. Now, tonight I am joined by my friend Dana Dunford. Dana is a nuclear proctologist. Yes, I said it, nuclear proctologist. He's an ex-commercial diver. He is a connoisseur of Mother Nature, as he likes to be called, and you can check out his YouTube video. I just posted it in the chat, called Horror, The Pacific Ocean Now Dead Due to Fukushima. Now, he is located in one of the most beautiful parts of the world. I have a very soft spot for this part of the world. My father is a Canadian native of British Columbia, and if my father was alive today, he would be so heartbroken to know that this is happening underneath the ocean floor of his motherland of Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, my friend Dana. Dana, good evening.
Thank you, Linda. That's great. And show you're very kind.
Oh, thank you, Dana. Well, you're like a fellow countryman to me, you know, in a way.
Yes, I feel that, actually.
It's probably where my love for hockey comes from, is from that Canadian blood.
And pulling the sweater over their heads and feeding them a few uppercuts, that probably comes along with it, too.
Oh, yes. You got it.
That's how the Canadians stop an argument. You pull their sweater over their heads and give them a few uppercuts. The loser boy's the winner of beer.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good old ice hockey for you.
The fear and the anger is all gone in a heartbeat. Oh, well, you won, you beat me.
Everybody shakes hands, I know.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
It's a gentleman's sport, it really is, even though it's brutal. But we're not here to talk hockey tonight.
No.
Even though we love hockey, we're talking about something much more serious than hockey tonight, and that is the Fukushima and the issues with the Pacific Ocean dying. Dana, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself, what you do for a living, and how you've discovered what you've discovered.
Well, that's a long one. I have worked at every industry on both oceans, and I also worked at every industry under both oceans. And I have a total litany of ocean life. That's my entire, right from the day I was born, growing up, that's all I would read was about the ocean. So I had the Jack Stowe Encyclopedia, the entire encyclopedia, and I read it over and over and over until I left home. And so then my whole life has been about, Mother Nature. Money, yes, is great, but Mother Nature, you cannot. I know when I dive, of course, wherever I usually dive, no one else will ever dive here. My puppy's all tangled up. Nobody else will ever dive in those spots, and that's quite a privilege, obviously. And you finish yet, Zoe? She's tearing all the stuff off my table. I got off track, sorry, folks. Now, I come up to the ocean, I go out to the ocean, and I have a plan where I'm going to put 100 cameras in the ocean. And of course, I can't find any life now. It's shocking. So we expand the search for 200 kilometers is a basic way of looking at that. The idea was we can build a spot somewhere and just bring in rocks and everything, and then life would attach it, and we would put cameras there, but there's no life. There's not even bacteria. There is a bit of life, of course. We found around 12 species. We're expecting and hoping at best to find 100, and they're on their way out. And I know that sounds way over the top, but what you have to take into consideration is the ocean has a couple of million unknown species already, well, was there, and that when we go on the coastline for 200 kilometers, taking random beaches that are accessible to everybody, so everybody can go check it themselves, and I mean, that's a hard thing to do because it impacts everybody in those communities, and we understand that perfectly well when we start doing that. That's the whole point, is if we don't do that now, then the future, you're living a dream for a very, very tiny while, because the microorganisms in the ocean have literally disappeared. We're not expecting even to find bacteria in the sand. Now, the bigger products like clams and feeder fish and stuff like that, big up the food chain, they bioaccumulate. It doesn't affect them the same way as it affects the filter feeders on the shoreline. And the shoreline is the nursery for the entire ocean. And so the ocean is a super life. You take a glass of water and you take a sample of that and put it under a microscope. You see an incredible amounts of animals. You can't count them all. A glass of water would have 75 to 100 million phytoplankton, and they create the oxygen, and they're the basis of the food chain. They also sequester carbon, so they're extraordinarily important. And as such, everything up further from that feeds the wildlife on the coastline, and then as you come up even higher, you're talking about the actual inhabitants of the coastline. Now, on the coastline, you should find babies of everything, particularly this time of year when all the sea urchins and sea stars and everything else, just 5,500 species that we recognize only, considering that, we're only finding less than 1% of 1%. And so that's inconceivable to someone like me. I've never seen that in both oceans. I've never got skunked on the coastline in my life. I never went there and not find nothing. And that was the whole point of what I used to say when I was harvesting food, was that we would pick 20,000 sea urchins a day. Now, that's just a tiny percentage in one tiny area, and a diver can only touch a very tiny fragment of the areas available because of depths and times and conditions and ground swells and currents and everything else. And so when I go up to 200 kilometers of coastline, you can't fool me, because I've done every industry in both oceans and in both oceans, and I don't find anything. Only just a tiny, I think when we counted 3 or 4 flies in 200 kilometers, we never seen any splats on the window in summertime with trees on both sides of the highway while we're driving between these places. That was extraordinary. That struck us on the 5th day. We started really noticing that one. We didn't see any of the normal 70 indigenous sea anemones, but not a single one. That don't mean there's not a couple hanging on, because the ocean is supposed to be a super life, so you would expect everything to repopulate immediately. In other words, if you went down with a plow in a healthy place, plowed it over, the ocean would recede that in 2 weeks, and stuff would crawl up and down deeper and fill it back up. And so when you don't see anything, and that the normal birds, 140 migratory birds that are coming along the coastline, depend upon the small fry. The fry depends upon the creatures that are eating the phytoplankton and the other tiny creatures. Now, to put it into perspective, if you took a radioactive nuclide, cesium-137, from the MOX fuel at Fukushima, and you had a glass of salt water with 75 to 100 million phytoplankton, and also full of about 1 billion other creatures, and you drop that isotope in there, it will fry all of them. The isotope will not diminish for at least 300 years, that particular one. So you can dump that now into, and I'll cut off, you can dump that into a bigger bucket and keep doing that, and it'll keep killing everything. And so we're up against something unimaginable that is released upon our entire planet for 70 years, and they equated it with a banana, but you can fill your house up with a banana, you're not going to get cancer. You can fill your house up with seawater, you can't get cancer normally, because I used to dive in it all day. I didn't see any divers with big tumors swimming around. And what ends up happening, of course, is you're killing the very existence of the planet, so the planet has to perish behind that. So if the elites wants to kill off the humans, to get rid of all the useless feeders on the planet, as we've been propagated out there that way for many years, why would they kill the other 8.8 million species? Is the question. And so what it is 2 million corporations depending on that for a living, and all the people there and their pensions and everything else, to the point of where their lie has become truth for them, and where they understood what they were doing, because they're all independent and they're all compartmentalized, and so the big picture has evaded them. And now what's going to happen, of course, as we go up the coastline, and I can guarantee you folks, we are heading up there, it's a real deal. We have a private donor to make sure that it all happens. And we have an organic movement that is pushing us. And if we don't find life, how are they going to look their children in the eye, right, Linda?
That's very true.
Right, keep going. How can you do that?
It's very true, and I had actually learned something from watching your video. I mean, I'm not the scientist, you are, and I did not realize that in the natural essence of things, the coastline usually repopulates itself. Is that correct?
Right away, too. Without hesitation, yeah. If it's a populated coastline, and British Columbia is,
yes.
And I dove the entire coastline repeatedly year after year, both oceans, and it's always the same wherever I went, just amazing amount of, you can't count it in a single spot. You can't count it in a square foot, but life should be there. Like the microorganisms and the little sand fleas and all the other little critters and creatures, and that they're all jostling for every square inch of the first 30 feet of the ocean. That is the most populated spot on the planet. And I used to always tell people there was enough protein there in the first 30 feet of water to feed the entire planet economically, because it will repopulate itself, because they'll crawl up from deeper waters to get in that sunlight. And that's why I mean the sunlight area of the ocean, the first 30 feet, is taken up by superior genetic selection of millions of years of evolution. They have fought their way to the top. And so it was a very vibrant, vigorous environment. And to see it missing has raised every hair on my, I would say my back, but I don't actually have hairs on my back, but it raised every hair on my head to the point of surrealness, where you don't even want to wake up in the morning and face it again. And I mean, who's going to get out there and pull this off and get up that coastline and actually know boat industries perfectly, know the nuclear industry perfectly, know how to handle the ocean, 26,000 islands, 4,000 kilometers at least, and then we're a 1,000-kilometer drive, 1,000-mile drive, and then another 1,000 kilometers in the Baltic Sea before winter sets in. We need a real operation. That's what we're putting together from scratch. We just got ourselves a lovely, absolutely gorgeous history on a boat. It's a search and rescue from a yacht club, and it was used to go out and rescue people. That's all it was used for, was to go out and rescue people. So it has a very, very appropriate history to it. That's all it's ever done. And we have it independent today. We went down to buy the spotlights, the radars, the sounders, the plotters, the GPSs, the flares, of course, the EPs, the self. We got devices that we throw in the water, or the boat falls in the water and tips over, which is not likely with this boat. This is a search and rescue top notch, 22 foot. It's meant to go anywhere and everywhere on the coastline. It's spotless. The engine is gorgeous, and it's disposable, because that's how this works. All it is about those 90 days and definitively taking away the narrative from everybody out there and trying to move forward with some kind of coercion of life. Because as it stands now, if we don't do this in a year's time, the entire planet is going to lose their minds without a narrative. And that's why you're doing what you're doing, Linda, and many other people like yourself, who are out there and trying to get people to come on board and understand it's not a game. It really truly has happened to us, and that the only way to get the narrative out there was to go up and videotape it, picture everything, take samples, microscopic, get that public every single day, and just push back like nothing we've ever even conceived before, because that's what we do. It's relentless. For 9 months, I haven't stopped. I don't even consider anything else on the planet. There's nothing else on the planet that matters to us. I mean, getting this job accomplished so everybody can have a debate. And we are going to accomplish this mission, but I don't think anybody can say that this is going to be easy or fun, or no matter how much comfort you can give me a 500-foot boat with 700 scientists. You can give me billions of dollars worth of equipment. It won't change the equation. It can't. Money can't fix it, and it's not going to make it any better for me. The fact is, I have to go out there independently and document it and make sure everybody can come behind me and get the same stuff, because we have to have that debate. And without platforms like yourself to actually get out there and push, it's going to be really hard to keep the narrative where people don't panic, because I can understand that, right? So GMO, if you get rid of that as a sign of good faith, I think we can almost look at our governments in the eye again for a while. And if they were to bring and give everybody in every community in their mailboxes organic seeds and tell no more pesticides, there's not enough insects left to kill anymore, and that we have to stop and try to repair something. We could take 4,300 peer-reviewed academic studies that are published every day and put them to task on every little issue each day. Another 4,300 universities and professors and their students and their monitoring, their expendables, all ready to go. If we had a meteorite coming at our planet, that's what we would do.
Right.
Yet we haven't reached that stage where the awareness is, we normally wouldn't have some of these simple signs of good faith, acts of good faith, like all the institutions getting to work. If the government come out and said, we got a big problem, the ocean is dying, we're going to put every institution in our country to work this out. Would that make you feel good, Linda?
No.
At least you're honest.
I mean, I know what you're doing is a great thing, but I feel like the government, whether it's my government, your government, I mean, that was my next question. Why aren't they speaking about this? I think what you're doing is fantastic, and we absolutely need more people like you to do this, to speak up, to go on these expeditions, to prove to others what is going on. Why aren't they speaking out about this?
Because the whole culture is designed around it. You know that a banana has nothing to do with radiation. We get all the experts in the media tell us that. And so they don't call them out, they don't correct them, they don't go out and research it and find out it's homeostasis, which means it's harmless. It means your body couldn't hold any more normal banana potassium-40. But every single time you come in contact with a man-made ionized radiated element, particle, atoms, it sequesters in your body forever. And it causes these tumors, and different types of radioactive material causes different types of tumor and autoimmune deficiencies. And so what the plan was, of course, is they fleece everybody, they fill up the shelves with the GMO, and that makes everybody lethargic and makes everybody feel not good. Of course, when you eat organic, you feel really good. You want to take your pet for a walk, you want to do your dishes.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, you feel like you're really something. So the government has nothing to gain by empowering our bodies, and as such would empower our mind, and everything to gain by making us subservient and making us, once again, lethargic, where we don't have what it takes to stand up and recognize what's going on. They don't even have it because they're eating the same thing, right? And so the system is designed that way to have the dumber holding on to the population that are unwillingly indoctrinated from the day they were born, that a banana somehow is equated to E equals MC squared.
Right.
Right. And so that's why the system, it can't live because everything becomes a lie when they tell the truth. Their whole history becomes one big lie. All those lies, they covered up, gets exposed. The children can't look them in the eye. They can't look anybody in the eye. And so you lose all trust. And if you lose that, of course, in society, in this day and age, then what could possibly... when you tax everybody all the time to the point where there's nothing left, and you have to do that to keep the government alive, then it's supposed to be a revolution. And so rather than a revolution, they're having an extermination. They're allowing it to happen. Because they understand what a radioactive element is. They told us it's a banana. They told us like walking in the sunshine. They told us like getting on an airplane. And these are nothing to do with it. And so they can't come out and tell the truth because they have no future, period. They have no pensions. They have no way of making a living, and no one will like them anymore. And when they find out, of course, now the ocean is dead, they can't hide it anymore. So they're hanging on in the hopes we won't notice. They're hanging on in the hopes that we can't work that out. And they're hanging on in the hopes of saying that it doesn't exist. they couldn't make it here, that the jet streams didn't exist, and that the Kuroshio currents are not real. And they live in this little tiny fantasy paradigm where people actually fall for it, because most people don't have anybody to look up to. Most people don't have anybody to admire in their personal life, because they all been indoctrinated through the same machine that is about to end in 60 days. The system is going to crumble in 60 days. And our way forward is to recognize that and to try to come up with solutions rather than their solution, obviously, because they're the ones who lied, the academics, the professors, the scientists. They were the ones who come out and told us it was like a banana, but yet they had the education to know better. And our media had the education to go and flush that out and say, no, a banana got nothing to do with it. But they didn't. See? And so they normalized everything. Go ahead.
Something is going on, because in the state of California, and this was a survey and a poll that was just recently taken, and I don't have the direct figures, but it had stated that all the newborns that are born right now, from the beginning of 2014 of January to now, have had a 50% increase in thyroid problems. These are babies. So,
go ahead. Hang on one second. I want to remind you that the radioactive iodine 131, 132, 133, and now the 129 we find out was 30 times more than 131. That's got a 15 million year half-life, sequesters in women's breasts. And so when the baby, of course, is being breastfed, it's getting major doses. Yeah, that's what's going on. And it was discovered that almost all breast cancers, by accident, they discovered it, was because of ionized radiated elements, not because of anything in nature, see? And so man-made ionized radiation released from wars, from dumping in oceans and everything else, that's the effect of breast cancer, folks.
Now, folks, if you want to call in instead of asking any questions in the chat, the number is 1-607-441-6233. Once again, that's 1-607-441-6233. If you want to call in and ask Dana any questions, that's fine. Do not be shy. There are no stupid questions.
Thank you.
So, I think my audience is just intrigued by what you're saying, and they're all very quiet and just want to listen. But
yeah, you can go ahead and ask, because you know me, I'll keep talking if you don't.
That's okay. I don't mind if you keep talking. What do we do about this as not just as an American, as a Canadian, as a people in general? What do we do about this problem?
It's a brilliant question, by the way. I'm so glad you asked it. Well, what we got to do is we got to take away their narrative, like the bananas and walking in the sunshine and flying on airplanes and x-rays and dental x-rays and chest x-rays. These are all just, every time, when you ingest a radioactive particle, you're getting a chest x-ray every moment of your life, if not several, depending on the particle. The particle will put out many becquerels a second, and a becquerel is a disintegration. But a becquerel is also powerful enough to flip over a grain of sand. And so that's why your body, when you ingest it, your body is attacking us. What you got to do, first off, is once again, you got to get rid of the GMO, and you got to get organic. You got to get it all out of your, because what GMO does to you is, and everybody else, of course, is it makes you vulnerable. It's got glyphosates and formaldehyde in it. These are carcinogenics into the DNA. This doesn't exist in normal food. And so they took out most of the parts per million of potassium, magnesium, calcium, and they took it out in such a great quantity that you can't call it food anymore. In other words, there was 6,000 parts per million of calcium in corn. They engineered it out to 114 parts per million. There was around 3,800 parts per million of potassium. They engineered it down to about 112 parts per million. So it completely took away the nutritional value of it, to the point where you need 428 corn on the cob of GMO to equal the same amount of calcium as a single organic corn on the cob. And so you're leaving yourself vulnerable. And so as a society, we need to get rid of the GMO and bring in the organic. And what the organic does, it helps unplate your blood. There's a few other ways around this, is structured water. Now, structured water is going to sound a little odd to folks, I know, but you've got to realize the world is truly magical. Now, it's been done in experiments that if you talk to water that you got from your sink, like you talk to a plant, if you talk to it, you can change the structure of the water back. And it's been shown in universities and institutions that when people dying of terminal diseases were given structured water, that their blood unplated. And what that is unbelievable, see? That your blood, that's how blood, your blood cells are unplated naturally. But when they get sick and you're old and feeble and you have these autoimmune deficiencies and cancers and everything, the blood plates up. And that's ultimately what is killing you and will kill you, certainly. And that's what chemotherapy does to you, too. It plates up your blood. And so you only got 2% of survival with leukemia. It's the stupidest thing imaginable. It's murder. But if you took structured water, and and we see it in samples where they gave people, took a sample of their arm, put it under the microscope, it was all plated up, gave them structured water, and then 20 minutes later took another sample of their arm, and it was all starting on plate. It was unbelievable.
Now, what is structured water exactly?
Well, structured water is just natural water,
Okay.
and it came from a mountain spring, right? It's like your dad was a native Canadian. My son's native Canadian. But they understand water from wells really well. I mean, that's something really popular here, where you get to know them and you go find out where to get some good water. For most people, that would be the best thing you can do, is get well water, river water, structured water, but you don't want anything from a tap. You don't want anything that went through an electric motor. You don't want anything that had salts or chemicals added to it, and because that changes the structure of the water. And so the most important thing is also DCA. Now, DCA has been shown to reduce all tumors, breast, pituitary glands, brain cancer, lung cancers, breast cancers, reduce the tumors by 70% in 2 weeks. Because what it does is it unplates your blood. And you can go to a local pharmacy and ask if they have a compound chemist. And if they got a compound chemist, they can make the DCA there. It's a benign chemical. You don't need a prescription. There's no patent on it. And it has been proven in repeated studies to have the same properties in the other studies, where it reduced tumors by 70%. And so you can live a lot longer. But none of this really matters unless we stop Fukushima. And none of it matters unless we clean up what we got on the planet and try that. Because that's the only way we can even start to try, is we have to, every population out there has to go to work and clean it all up, just to stop it from constantly hemorrhaging into our environment. Hanford has 41 miles of unlined trenches that they dump the yellow cake from the plutonium production, and it's unlined and it's not buried. They also dumped 450 billion gallons directly into the soil in the 50s and 60s of the nuclear waste. Now, they done that in the Tetra River in Russia in the late 40s. They were dumping that same stuff into the river. They evacuated 7,500 communities and 9,000 square miles. Right, that's how rotten that stuff is. Now, we have it not only in Afghanistan, where there's 5 million orphans, where there's nothing but depleted uranium. It was unimaginable what they've done in that place, and Iraq. So we got to take up 6 inches of topsoil in both of those countries. We have to take up. Japan is destroyed forever. The coastlines are destroyed in the Pacific Rim by the looks of things. I hate to say that it is, but I'm getting reports from all over the island of Vancouver Island of people finding the same stuff as I found, the same species as we've already found. And so a lot of people want to go into the oil and say they've seen a crow, or they've seen an eagle, or they've seen some fish. Well, they're further up the food chain, but as everything else dies off, they got nothing to feed on, only potato chips and french fries and stuff like that. So you see them hanging around for a bit while those bigger species, but the fish will all have to die off really soon. And that is what we're worried about. At that point, the planet might panic. And so if we can get up there, and we will, and we'll go along that coastline for 60 days, and we're loading it up on the site. I think within 2 weeks, every nuclear scientist on the planet is going to be buying those Marco Grouches glasses with the mustache. And you know what I mean? They won't be able to look their kids in the eyes, because they won't be able to look their children in the eyes. So that's their sanctuary, is being able to go home, see? And we're going to take that away from them, deservingly and pathetically, because they had the opportunity. And what we done was we sent the homeless into Fukushima to do the most dangerous, difficult, the most courageous job on the planet, and they don't even have a clue what they're doing. Most of them can't read or write. Most of them are alcoholics, and they're sort of having all kinds of accidents all the time, all kinds of extra releases with no way forward until it's too late. And so once again, we gotta kind of find a way past all the hate and the animosity coming from people, the instant knee-jerk reaction of, yelling and screaming routine. I went through that, trust me. And, I went down the road of how do we go about proving it? Because they're not going to let us do it. They're not going to do it for us. And how do we go about taking away their narrative? And then we can have a debate. And so the plan was 60 days, photograph around 4,000 kilometers, and you don't see the marine life then, well, that means the rest of the Pacific Basin's also gone too. You can't have one without the other. And we don't find bacteria on the beach, and we didn't. It wasn't even a smell. We only seen a couple of insects. We never seen anything indigenous populations of animals or creatures, just a random scatter. You could put everything we've seen in a wheelbarrow, certainly in the back of a truck, if you include all the birds and everything else. Just everything is missing. And what are we going to do? I have to get up there and beg people to set us free. And finally, we have a donor step free. I'm not humiliating myself by doing that, see. I could never do something like that. But here I can. Here, and now we don't have to. And what we're going to do is extraordinary, where everybody chipped in and everybody got us out the gate, and then after that, everybody's going to have to pick up the pieces. It's going to be really bad. So there's nothing good about this. There's nothing good coming out of this, right?
If we don't stop this leak in Fukushima, basically, we're done. It's as my old grandfather would have said, it's acquaintance. He was from Brooklyn, New York, had a heavy accent, and it's just, we're done. We're finished.
Yeah. Because you're taking out the basis of the food chain, and we're taking out the oxygen, 50% of the oxygen production through the killing of the phytoplankton, and they're extraordinarily vulnerable. Of course, everything on the ocean, as you can live for a little bit longer, but not much, because those plumes are coming into Fukushima 1,440 minutes a day. And what happens is every day there's around 50 square miles. After 1,300 days, but after 131 days, it already hit our coastline, and 130 days behind it was another 1,440 minutes of plumes. And so it's not like a single plume came out and it's dispersing. It doesn't work that way. It's plume after plume after plume. It's like St. Paddy's Day, where you pour dye in the river, but you never stop. And say the river is 4,000 miles long, and every day, every minute, you're putting 1,000 pounds of dye into the river, every minute of green dye. And so at the end of 3.5 years, I say to you, get in a plane, here's all the fuel and plane, cameras. I want you to fly all the way down that 4,000 mile river and tell me where the dye stopped at the end of 3.5 years, 1,440 minutes a day, putting a pickup truck into that river. Well, if you wouldn't get all the way to the ocean, it still wouldn't stop every estuary, every lake, and everything from the rain, convection, evaporation would have just been covered in that dye, because you didn't stop for 3.5 years. So what we're facing is the same thing, except it's radioactive, and it's not going to go away forever.
Oh, it's called extinction. That's what it is. We're going to become extinct. Mankind is making us extinct.
Because we don't get an opportunity.
How depressing.
So what we're going to do is have the debate, right? What we're going to do is demand 4,300 peer-reviewed studies every day. Go ahead, Linda, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to know, I wanted to ask, and it's not really shifting gears here, but
sure.
Since you're, into the oceanography and the science of this, what about in the Gulf when, I know I'm shifting from a different ocean. All the oceans are connected, in my opinion. Am I wrong on that?
No. Well, the Gulf of Mexico was the nursery for that whole area. It's a huge area. And so, folks, what you want to think about is that plume coming up. I want you to think about something that's 1,000 miles by 5 miles deep. It's 1,000 miles wide by 5 miles deep. But I want you to think of it in terminology as an iceberg for a second, tumbling along your shoreline. But it's 1,000 miles wide, but it's tumbling along your shoreline and it's crushing everything. Well, that would be okay because it would all show up back in the spring. Well, that's what happens on the east coast of Canada, where all the wind pushes all the ocean on the coastline and scrubs it clean. Go there in the springtime, here you can't find an inch without life. Not a single inch without life. But what happened there was, we had 1,000 miles of oil, very toxic stuff, and then 3 million gallons of Corex sprayed over the entire area on top of this. That was chemtrailing, by the way, folks. And as this 1,000-mile by 5-mile plume of oil rolls along your coastline, it got rid of all the genetic superior, genetic selected life that jostled for that spot for billions of years, and it has suffocated the entire area permanently, where you can't rehabilitate it or habitat it because you can't do that kind of work down there. It's just too enormous. So you could do it, of course, with dredging and dredge it all up. But we took 4,300 peer-reviewed academic studies tomorrow and went down and dredged up the top foot of all the Gulf for the next 5 years. You would accomplish something. You could actually do it in that particular circumstance. Then you would take 4,300 peer-reviewed studies the next day and figure a way to reseed that whole area with genetic superior from other areas. But of course you can't do that anymore because all the oceans are connected together. And what happens in one place will happen in the other. And what we're looking at is trying to buy time so we can get all these institutions to come on board and treat it as a meteoroid coming at us instead of a banana. And what we can end up with is something like, if we go up north and we see the North Passage is dying and there's still life, we can knock a mountain down and block it off. Now it freezes for many years sometimes, and so we can create an artificial current on the other side in the Atlantic, and the winds and everything else will grab it, and we can still buy time. And so how crazy is it that I'm talking that way? Obviously, if you listen to most of the conversation tonight, then you would understand that is one of the few things we got left to work on, and we got to get up there and find out. And they're not going to tell us, but it looks like they're not going to get in our way. It looks like they're not even going to bother us. It certainly looks like, and it should be. I mean, it's no good for them to come up to me on the ocean and ask me for anything, because I'm going to fall down laughing if they do. It's hopeless. I'll have kinks. I say, "What? Shouldn't you be looking for your pensions? Because they're gone, like all the fish in the ocean." You know, it's ridiculous for anybody to approach me from the government without trying to help me. You know, without trying to set us all free. And we have a donor tonight who has put his back in there each time, done everything he could to get us out there as quick as he could. We keep running into issues because of the system that is in place that is collectively punishing everybody on the planet and trying to keep them in the dirt for just a little bit longer, for just another couple of months. They're willing to do that. They'd rather give it all away, let it all die for sure before it's all gone. But the problem is the planet will lynch these people. The planet is going to lose its mind when it realizes they're killing the Pacific permanently. How can you tell your child that one? Go ahead, Linda. I'm sorry.
No, please. You're fascinating, Dana. I love listening to you.
Thank you.
I live in an area, I married into a commercial fishing family, and they're no longer in the fishing industry, but I have friends who are fishermen. And the fishermen are telling me that when they catch their fish, here in my neck of the woods on the California Pacific coast, they're being told that just ignore what your Geiger counters are reading for the radiation of your fish. It is okay. Because some of the fishermen have taken upon it themselves to do the Geiger counter when they catch their fish, and whether it's their salmon or their tuna or whatever.
Sure. And
when they presented this to Fish and Game, and I can't say the name, they told me I can use it as an example, but don't bring up the boat, don't bring up the fishing family. The Fish and Game will kill us. And I said, hey, I understand, but Fish and Game are telling the fishermen it's okay. It's been approved by Fish and Game. Just because the levels of the fish are high, it's approved by the FDA and and this and that and every other organization. Unbelievable.
I'm sorry, that's just a gallows laugh, folks. Go ahead, Linda. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're not cutting me up.
You just gave me shivers as you told me that. I was like, oh my goodness. How do they even sleep at night?
Well,
I justify it, right?
I don't even want to eat anything anymore.
No, I can't. No.
So would you say it's not wise to eat seafood anymore? Is seafood in the past?
Yeah, seafood is gone. It's off the table forever. Because it bioaccumulates all kinds of radioactive elements, not just the cesium, right? There's 2,000 other ones that they don't tell you about, on purpose, of course, because you might ask a question, like, what's the name of it? And they'll always call it, well, it's national security, or it's military applications. But what's it doing in the ocean killing shit? Excuse language, but what's it doing escaped into our environment. See, the big lie was that everything was in a sarcophagus. Oh yeah, you know, it's dangerous, but we're going to have it in a sarcophagus. It'll be there for hundreds of thousands of years, and everything is hunky-dory. They can't do it, because if you actually contain it in a sarcophagus where nothing can escape, the noble gases that build up from that chain reaction, from the physical production, the hydrogen will detonate anything. There's nothing can contain it. It'll blow it up, and you'll lose that sight. See? And so you won't be able to get back on that site. So all the containments are leaking into our environments all the time. All the nuclear power plants are bottling up 120,000 liters into our community every day for each spent fuel pool. And so spent fuel pool is full of radioactive rods from the chain reaction. And because they went through this madness that shouldn't exist, these elements are not even created by the sun. See, the sun, they tell you the chain reaction of a nuclear reactor is like the sun, but it's not. The sun creates elements. Nuclear destroys them. And then these man-made ionized radiated elements, they shouldn't even be, and that's what nuclearproctologist.org is. It's a nuclear policy think tank. And we advocate never letting these things off our planet because the universe is not acclimated to it, and neither are we. And as such, you know, I think about how they say that it's like a banana, yet they went to university. And how come the people who interviewed him or wrote the story doesn't say, yes, he went to a university, and I tried to talk sense into him, but he still insists on saying that a banana is like man-made radioactive. The minute they say something like that, the whole Jericho wall comes down on their head, and everybody becomes awake immediately. We're living in a land where it's where they live, where they beat each other up in the alley when they finally put the sunglasses on the other guy's face, and then he actually sees and he gets it. Yeah, oh yeah, I get it now. And well, that's what media, you know, and that's why you do what you do, Linda. That's what media is doing to everybody. They got them in that paradigm, and they can't break free. But these people, in a very short while, will be hated worse than everything on the planet because they lied so much. They can't even look their own friends anymore in the eyes now. What's going to be like in another 2 months when this breaks? And it doesn't matter if they kill me and take me out. You can't stop this from coming out. We already kicked the can out there, and everybody can go do it themselves. Get up at low tide, walk down on the beach and take some pictures and do some comparisons, and you can see if it affected your region. And everybody done that tomorrow morning, we wouldn't have to go. We would have a debate. I would hang around for the debate, right? We are going because people won't do that, and they don't understand the significance of what I'm saying and how simple and mindless it is to walk down to your local wharf at low tide and get pictures of the various lowest areas. Yeah, because there's people like me out there will jump on it and analyze it and then use it as a tool to bludgeon the opposition and apologists.
Now, Dana, we have just about 5-6 minutes left here, and I wanted to ask you, and you don't have to answer this, if you don't feel comfortable answering this, that's fine, but because of what you're doing, have you received any threats yourself?
Just incredible amount of threats.
Really?
It's terrible. I got people want to light me up with a blowtorch if I don't walk.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, I got them still got them on my phone there.
Oh.
I got an amazing amount of death threats. I get amazing amount of ignorance anyway, of course, but these are categorically threats. They're not even afraid. Right? They're not even scared.
Oh, damn.
Can you imagine doing stuff like that? And of course, I had an incident a few days ago where I was set up in order to take me out of this, because I don't know, you know, these people can't go down. They say they watch my video, my presentations, where we went through the low tide lines. That's what we studied, was the low tide lines, and they couldn't even do that. And they say that I'm full of lies and that I'm manipulative and everything else. When all you got to do is go to my site, nuclearproctologist.org, go to section 13, and you can go to the 200. You can go to every one of those beaches behind me. And if there's life there, all you got to do is take a picture. And every word I've ever said is discredited. Everything I've ever done is useless. Everything I ever say is hopeless. And everybody should shun me immediately and appropriately. But you can't. Nobody can.
No. Well,
Yeah.
Everyone that's listening tonight, I want all of you to say some prayers for Dana, give him some positive energy, light, and love. Now, you're going on expedition soon, and you return in, is it correct, 60 days?
Well, yeah, we leave. I know you only got a few moments left. We're leaving hopefully this coming Tuesday. So we're out the gate really fast here. If not, it'll be Wednesday, and then we'll be posting up there every day. We're gone for 60 days up to the north. That's just a rough figure. If it takes longer, it takes longer. But what we're going to do at 60 days is we're going to break off, drive up to the Tuktoyaktuk in the Yellowknife, Northwest Territory to the Baltic Sea, and we're going to launch it up there and try to cover around 500 kilometers on each side before winter sets in. And then we'll come back and finish off the trip down the Pacific and come. We're going up to Alberta to have a little summit because we think by that time that the world will wake up and come on board, and that we might have a way to move forward without hate and animosity. And that's all we want, is just an opportunity to have that debate, and so that people have an opportunity, and they're not terrorized and terrified, and they're not living in a police state, because the police can't control what's coming. See, nothing can, only logic, and the people waking up and hearing everything and coming to a conclusion on their own, that we all got to fight for the entire, whatever species are left, we have to fight for them. Because they ain't got a voice, and they don't deserve it.
And for our children and our children's children and beyond. I mean, this is their planet the planet we're leaving them is sad. It's terrible. So Dana, I would love to have you back on my show after this exhibition that you're getting ready to do. I'd love to interview you again and fill us all in on everything. And I'm going to go to your website, put it in my favorites so I can keep up to date with everything.
And you got my phone number, so you got access to me. You got access to me while I'm on the trip. If you need to call me up, if something going on, you can call me, Linda, and I'll find time for you. You can be sure for everybody. No matter how busy I am, I got time. That's the way I am.
Thank you so much. You're a great soul, and we need more people like you. Bless you.
Thank
for
you.
what you're doing.
You too, Linda.
Have a great evening, Dana, and we will chat. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here.
Hugs for everybody, folks.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Linda.
Good night. Thank you, everybody, for joining and staying with me this evening and having my guest Dana on. Really incredible what that man is doing. It's good stuff, but in reality, what's happening to our planet is just bad stuff. So, with that being said, there has to be more voices. More of us have to speak up and say something. So I did promise you a star report for the end of the show. And I promise next week, I know I've been throwing a lot of heavy issues at everyone. I had Tom on a few weeks ago with Earth changes and this, that, and the other. You're seeing it in the news. I mean, the whole Middle East has gone just completely nuts. And I knew this would happen a year ago. And I shouldn't be shocked by it. But I am. Just because it's the spirit of the world. Then, you've got chaos going on in Ferguson. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. The world is in a crisis. There's a war going on here on Earth, but there's also a war going on up in heaven. And it's not the kind of war you think between God and Satan, actually. There's a war going on in heaven, and it's actually between aliens against aliens. Yes, and in a few weeks from now, I'm going to have some people on that are going to talk to you about reptilians. They're going to talk to you about alien species and what's really running this country. You have your main government, but you also have a secret government that's really running this country. Obama's just a puppet. Bush was just a puppet. They're puppets. The higher-ups, you don't know who they are. You'll never see them. Even our own president doesn't even have access to things like Area 51 and high-topic information like that. And in the months to come, I will introduce you to people, about talking about Majestic 12, the Granada Treaty, things like this. I'm trying to get David Icke on. I've been trying to email him for a couple of days. He may be on tour, or he's getting ready to go. Oh, where was he? He's going to some event in London in October. I'd like to get him on before then, but we shall see. Next week's show is going to be fun. A lot more fun than this. And I'll tell you about it in just a minute. Let me give you the new moon forecast. I know a lot of you have been feeling kind of low, down in the dumps. It's going to get better. The new moon's coming on Monday. I never thought I'd ever say come on Monday. But come on Monday. Because I'm just in this blah mood. I'm just really in a funk right now, and I really want the new moon energy to come. New moon is in Virgo on Monday, August 25th. And we're going to have the planet of Mercury, which is communication, and the planet of Venus, which is love, in control for about 4 days, from the 25th through the 28th. With this new moon, it brings about worries of health and perfection in your working environment. Now, I will say this. If you are getting ready to go on a diet or start an exercise regimen, this is the perfect time to do it. The stars are blessed by it. You will do great on your diet. You will do great on setting goals for yourself for exercise. It's blessed by these stars. Now, also with this new moon, you may be forced into new employment opportunities. Now, just remember, these changes will be positive in the long run. Just remember, when one door closes, another one opens. The stars have much better in store for you. It may not seem like that in the beginning, but in the end, it will be good. This is the perfect time to start any kind of diet and exercise. Like I said, you're going to have more success in these endeavors as they're blessed by the stars. Now, however, with this moon, you have a tendency, all of us, not just one particular sign, to be a little more picky and fussy and critical with others, as this energy also makes us want perfection. We have to achieve perfection. That's Virgo. I have to be perfect. Everything has to be organized. It's a good thing, and I have a lot of Virgo in my chart, and so I know how this is. My own dragon tail is in Virgo, and one thing I've learned through radio is I get in a hissy fit. I used to. I don't do this anymore. When things don't go perfectly. You know what? I've learned. Sometimes things aren't going to go perfectly. You just have to say, you know what? Oh, well, it happens. No biggie. Anyway, next week is going to be a great show. It's going to be a fun show. I'm going to have one of my girlfriends on with me the second half of the show. Her name is Barbara. Call her BJ. She's my gal pal. She and I go and do wine tasting together. We bake lasagnas. We've had parties here while I've been on air. It's a good time. We're going to talk about something fun. We're going to talk next week about the laws of attraction. Yes, the laws of attraction. What attracts people to certain people? What is that? What do you think that is? There's a lot to it, but I'm going to lay it down for you next week. We're going to talk sex, we're going to talk lust, and we're going to talk love. We're going to even talk soulmates. And if I have some time next week, I'm going to let you guys out there in DTM world take a shot at me giving you guys a love chart. That's right, 2 birthdays, 1 chart. And if you're curious to see how compatible you are, let's give it a try. I also want to mention one more thing. A good friend of mine, and I know she's going to be listening to the show later on the replay, so it'd be nice for me to do this. I know a lot of us are big animal lovers. I know the owners are, both Denny and Tiffany. Myself, I know most of the people in the chat are probably animal lovers. Most of the people I know are big-time animal lovers, and sometimes in life I've had to do this before, where I've had to go and put down one of my pets due to health. So my friend Pam, who's been a listener of my show for a long time, is now listening through DTM. I want everyone tonight to send her some light, some love, and some positive healing, because she had to put her cat down, and I'm going to cry because it's about animals and I can't deal with it. But the cat was suffering. He's no longer suffering. He's now with the kitty angels, and we'll just leave it at that. But anyway, send her some good vibes, some light and love to Pam as well, because losing a pet is like losing a best friend. Isn't that right? We're all animal lovers. We know this. Anyway, glad I was here with you all this evening. It's been a great show. Thanks to my friend Dana for joining me. I hope everyone has a wonderful, peaceful, and blessed weekend. Light and love to all, and I'll be back next week. Peace out.